Hi, this is Eric Ristau, and you're listening to Chasing the Horizon, a podcast by, for, and about motorcyclists.
Welcome to Chasing the Horizon, a podcast by, for, and about motorcyclists, brought to you by the BMW Motorcycle Owners of America. Subscribe in iTunes or stream from the website at horizon.bmwmoa.org. My name is Wes Fleming. Thanks for joining us. I'm a little disappointed that there's nothing new to report in the Royal Enfield world. But wait a minute. Actually, there is. I know I'm not fooling you, so here's the dish. Royal Enfield is getting ready to launch their parallel twin bikes around the world. The Interceptor 650 and Continental GT 650 are currently being displayed in the UK and Australia with a flashy new red and white color scheme on the Interceptor and an understated black and gray setup for the Continental GT. The twin-cylinder engines are air-cooled and feature a single overhead cam engine designed by engineers in both India and the UK. It's Royal Enfield's first twin-cylinder engine in over 25 years. Harley-Davidson is back in the news, and I'm going to tell you about three things. First, Harley's CEO, Matt Levatich, did an interview with The Street, and during that interview, he reaffirmed plans to have a Harley-Davidson electric motorcycle available to the buying public on their previously stated timeline, which targets the middle of 2019 for the bike's release. He called electric motorcycles, quote, suited to a generation of people that don't have the mechanical depth of experience that maybe boomers had with manual transmissions and clutches. I can't say he's wrong there, but that feels like a little bit of a slap at millennials, which is a pretty common thing to see now from just about everywhere. My kid just got her learner's permit, and I'm teaching her how to drive a manual transmission car, which seems to freak her friends out. Anyway, continuing on with Harley news. Here it is late April, and that means financial reports for the first quarter of 2018 are out. Harley's Q1 revenue, as compared to Q1 in 2017, is up 2.7%, but motorcycle sales are down 9.7%. They also lost nearly a full point of market share, with their number dropping to 50.4%. It's not all bad news, though. International sales are up minutely, and they're seeing some good tax benefits from the recent U.S. tax code overhaul. The thing I've seen lots of folks talking about recently, though, is Harley's new internship program. They're soliciting applications for 8 interns. Each intern will get riding lessons if they don't already know how to ride, and then they'll be asked to ride around the U.S. on a Harley-Davidson, of course, for 12 weeks, venturing to various factory and dealer events and keeping up a steady stream of social media content to share their experiences with the public. At the end of the internship, they'll get to keep the motorcycle. If you're a college junior or senior or a recent college graduate and interested in applying for this internship, the link to the appropriate page on Harley's website is in the show notes. You'll need to get your application in quickly by May 11th, so don't wait too long. After you wrap that internship and head off into the world with your bike, don't forget to save up to pay the taxes on it. I'd love to see the 1099 they issue for that. That's it for the news this time around. But I'm going to also include a link in the show notes about a crazy-looking two-wheel drive modification done to a KTM 990 Adventure. It's a project called DTA. You have to check this thing out. Seeing is believing. Normally, I'm able to exert a bit of control over when these conversations I have start and stop. But in the case of Eric Ristau and Neil Olson, I was out of my league from the get-go. We fell into the conversation without any of my usual platitudes for shy guests, and so now we join my discussion with Neil and Eric, already in progress. The first voice that isn't mine that you'll hear is Eric, and the second is his collaborator, Neil Olson.
Oh, sure, you bet. I appreciate it. As far as... I always crack up because, being a filmmaker that happens to specialize, I like to think I specialize in motorcycle-related films because that's just something I love to do. I've always enjoyed that. And I'm probably the least experienced rider of anybody who could say that there are.
That's not true.
I have ridden since I was a teenager. My brother and I were gifted a 82 Yamaha Vision that our cousin gave us. And my brother rode it more than I did, and I was in radio. I was trying to make movies, and then I realized girls liked them, and that sort of helped. But then we kicked around a Honda Sabre, which was like way faster and more powerful than I had any business riding as a teenager. That thing was just incredible. And after Best Bar, I just really got into the Airheads and got into them as in really enjoyed whenever I had a chance to ride them, and worked on a /6 that Morto here kind of helped me rework. But I am not a bike collector. I'm not even at this point a bike owner, only because I've got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old and a bike that had all kinds of electrical problems. So fortunately, this man,
no garage
helps. But this man has so many motorcycles, he's got them coming out his ears. And if I need a bike, this guy's very generous that way. And so right now, my shekels are going into making movies and trying to get this stuff out there. And when I can afford it, I'm going to get a sidecar, a rig, we had a sidecar on our /6, which was a blast. But I'm going to take those kids to school in a sidecar rig, man. They're going to remember that their whole lives. And, I hope to get them onto 2 wheels themselves. I mean, that is absolutely part of my future. It's just one of these young dad periods where, I have to make choices,
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's a blast. And it's, I'm a pretty patient guy, and I have a long game in mind. And when I look at this guy's collection and what this guy is up to, that's a major inspiration.
He automatically thinks of long game. Old bastard.
I mean, if you guys could walk around his property and see his various buildings, collections of just unbelievable motorcycles and artwork and it is just a wonderland. I could live at your place. How do you feel about that?
That's a personal compost.
Well, we'll just pick this up in progress, and let me introduce my guests for the show this week. We've got Eric. Eric, do you say your name Ristau or Ristau?
Ristau, that's right.
Eric Ristau, filmmaker, and Neil Olson, who is a motorcycle builder and the protagonist in Eric's newest film, which is called The Last Motorcycle on Earth. Gentlemen, welcome to Chasing the Horizons. It's nice to meet you.
Hey, thanks. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were just hearing about Neil. We were just hearing about Eric's lack of motorcycle transport at the current time. But when you go, back behind your house to your garage, wherever it is, what's the first bike you gravitate towards to go for a ride?
Generally I head for the one that has tires, battery, and gas. Those are the 3 really critical things because when you hit a certain number of motorcycles, you become a fleet manager more so than a bike owner, and you have to just basically take whatever is willing. And that, honest to God, I'm not being. I mean, yes, I'm trying to be a little funny, but in fact, it's the truth. I have to pretty much go with whatever is available.
Yeah, well, I have an actual serious logistical question for you, because I'm at the point I have 3 motorcycles, which is not a lot, but I don't have a garage. I have a shed and a driveway, so I kind of manage them that way. But how do you keep track of when this one had an oil change, when that one was last overhauled, inspections, registrations? How do you keep track of all that?
I honestly, the ones that actually get ridden quite a lot, I chart with a Sharpie on the side of a shelf in my garage near the funnel that I have hanging on the wall. It is that low tech, but it's funny the 3 motorcycle thing. I remember, like everyone, having 1 motorcycle originally, and then being panicked at the thought of having that motorcycle unavailable. So you get the second one, and then so on. But honestly, your odds of having them all down at the same time are far greater than just keeping one going. So it's horrible math.
Like what they say about twin engine planes. Some people think it's twice as safe, and others say you're twice as likely to have a problem.
Yeah, I ended up this winter with 2 bikes down and 1 in storage because, well, since I don't have a garage, I didn't want to leave my sidecar rig out in the crappy weather, rain and snow and ice and freezing cold. So when on the occasions it was nice, I couldn't go anywhere. I had one bike that needs fuel lines, another bike that needed a clutch, and my rig in storage. So it was.
Yep. Yeah. Welcome to my world times whatever. Everything is broken.
What's your ballpark number? I mean, I'm not going to ask you for
80-ish, I suppose, something like that.
Wow.
I don't know. I try not to. I don't like to
think about
that, because that is such a. I don't know. That's just sort of pretentious, I mean, I have a lot of damn bikes, that's for sure. But
I saw one of the places that I go to do my occasional tech videos is just a small independent shop here near Richmond, and the landlord is a motorcycle rider, and he, as a joke, put up a sticker that said, "My other car is 10 motorcycles that don't run."
That's good. Attaboy. Yeah, I feel his pain.
So let me ask Eric. Let me ask you a couple questions here, not to sideline Neil, but I first came in touch with your work with the Best Bar in America, and followed that up with your. I'm not sure if it was your first documentary, but it was certainly your first motorcycle documentary, Sit, Stay, Ride, the film that you did about dogs and their motorcycle operators, as I like to refer to it. So how did you get into filmmaking? How does that process start? Whether it involves motorcycles or not, I'm curious to find out how you kind of figured out that you were a filmmaker.
Well, I always enjoyed movies, and when I was about 12, my uncle bought a VHS video camera and loaned it to our family, foolishly, because I ended up pointing at the sun and making a permanent white spot on the sensor. But we had a lot of fun making stuff, my brother and me, with that. You couldn't edit; you had to shoot in sequence and plan everything out. And, we're just horsing around. It didn't cost any money, and could rewind and record over it. So that really kind of got me excited about the idea. And I looked at what I was shooting on a VHS camcorder in the 80s and looking at, Back to the Future, and boy, they looked really different. And I wanted to figure out why that was. And so bought a film camera when I was 16 and started shooting 16 millimeter, 100 feet at a time. And it was great to start at that time because you had to be so miserly with that film. It was just, I figured eventually, once I actually did have 10 minutes of footage, it was $1,000 for 10 minutes of footage by the time you bought the film stock, processed it, and transferred to video. I never did edit the film, but I worked at a TV station as a teenager, so I had access to some of their stuff, and I learned that. And I just knew I wanted to make my own films. And if I had to pay my way by working in TV, turning the teleprompter knob for the anchors, or occasionally getting to go out on high school, football shoots with a Betacam on my shoulder, that's what I was going to do. And I started making commercials and trying to, pay the way by doing the work and learn how to do it. And, I went to college for a while and studied anthropology, which I thought was a great thing to bridge with film because it's, I like looking at cultures and subcultures, which is exactly what, motorcycling and all the subcultures are. And that's been great. Now my wife and I have this production company that we do on one side. We do commercials, we do web branding videos, we do stuff like that. And then the other half, we're working on our own films, always have one or two going. And, that's been the way. And we've been really lucky because we've been able to make a living doing that. And I haven't had a real job since about 2003. And so that's been cool.
Well, yeah. And I can kind of understand where you're coming from with that. In my previous career as a musician, being in rock and roll bands doesn't really pay very well. So you always keep a straight gig on the side. Right. So I was always, teaching guitar lessons or repairing amplifiers, repairing guitars, working for other bands and stuff like that. So it sounds like you found a good balance of being able to, pay the bills and still make the kind of films that feed your soul.
Well, it used to be that I thought as soon as I get my break, I'm going to quit all this commercial stuff and, not be doing this anymore. And, after having kids, I just look at it totally differently, which is, whether I get any kind of break or not, which I at this point don't feel like I need now that we can self-distribute and shoot good-looking video on our own with our own gear. I mean, that's, to me, that was the break, the freedom to do what we want to do, not to make $1 million necessarily. But I used to think I'd quit doing commercials now, but to me, they are so simple, since I've done so many hundreds and hundreds of them. And I like working with different people all the time. You meet these clients and you never worked with them before.
He's tired of me.
We might. It's cold. Well, that's okay. Yeah. You get sick of it now. But if somebody wants to pay me a few grand to do a TV commercial, man, that's going to go in the kids' college fund. We're going to go buy ourselves a motorbike, or we're going to do something with it. I'm not going to turn down money. Yeah. So I'm happy doing both right now. And it would take a lot for me to not do both.
So just out of curiosity, would you have done a commercial that I might have seen way out here on the East Coast?
Man, probably not. I did a few national commercials like 15, 20 years ago, and that's basically been it. But of course, with the internet, I mean, who knows? I mean, if you were talking about something on TV, probably not. Gotcha. But if it's on the web, maybe. Cool.
So let me jump over to Neil again real quick. Neil, did you have much experience with Eric as a filmmaker before you got involved in his most recent project?
Well, no, actually, I knew him, I think, kind of first peripherally around motorcycles. He and his brother, when they had started to pitch their first film, their first feature film, they had been trying to round up local motorcycles and talent, and they had approached one of his brother Damon had actually asked me if I was interested, and he looked like he was about 13, and I said, but of course everyone looks like they're 13 when you're my age, so I had just blown him off, and it's like, no, not really, but thank you for asking, and then of course it came out, and then I was kicking myself, and like, what you idiot, this would have really been fun. And
there was a New Year's Day ride.
A New Year's Day ride, yeah, we do an annual New Year's Day ride in Missoula, and it's usually snowy and awful, and a friend of mine and I both rode two of my sidecar bikes and went down to this local bar, and they were approaching people on sidecars.
We wanted a sidecar for
for the film. It needed to happen. So yeah, that's how I met them, and but then we've been kind of pounding heads about ideas since, and finally kind of came up with this one, and we even kind of started on a couple of little things, and
yeah, it takes a little while to kind of get the momentum up. After I met Mort and started, got a sense of some of the other guys that he associates with. I just started hanging out at his place and trying to learn stuff. And I had this /6. 750 that we did some work on, and it was just fun to kind of
And I had to learn how to read. That was something that was apparently critical.
I held the book.
Well,
luckily they put
Easter thing. It came on me suddenly.
Yeah, luckily they put lots of pictures in motorcycle repair manual, so
they do. Lots of pictures are really handy. They are. Yeah.
So we did a little short film here a couple of years ago called The Winter Rider, which we had to do in like 2 hours at
so we could get tickets to a film festival.
Yep, negative 17 degrees. He dug an
coldest day in recorded history in Missoula, and he wants to make a film. So we make a film about riding through this god awful weather. It was the most miserable weather I've ever ridden in.
He dug the 50s or 60s era Ural out of a literal snowdrift. You could not see anything but the handlebars.
Dug it out, got it started, rode it to a grocery store to get a bag of ice.
That set the tone for our collaboration. Yeah. So,
well, that's one of the things that I've noticed about Urals. The small shop up in Northern Virginia that I work part-time at, we service Urals. And now, of course, we mostly get recent Urals that are, 10 years old or less. But every now and then a guy will bring one in and he'll say, it's having this, that, and the other problem. But you kick it 2 times and it starts right up. It may not run great, but it wants to start.
Right. No matter what you do, it might not run great. Right. Yeah, if they don't break in the first 1,500 miles, they probably never will. They're just an amazing amazingly junky, wonderful thing. I like the early ones, but there's probably a new one on my horizon. I still have an Airhead too. So,
well, there's no accountant for taste, but I'll let that one go. I'm just kidding. I got
What is refreshing though is people don't mind telling you have an ugly bike when you're riding your own. It's sort of somehow it's legit.
Yeah.
It's like being bald or fat. It's okay to say, but people never tell you when you have an ugly baby, right? They seem okay with telling you your bike is a Ural and what's the matter with you.
Yeah. Well, you might be right about the ugly baby thing. How do you feel about Eric's kids?
Well, I knew I was...
Which one?
Yeah, right, exactly. I knew that I was in for an interesting experience because I think before we even really started hanging out, there was a picture on Facebook that you guys had obtained, you and Gina, had obtained a pile of 650 Ural engines. And there was a photo, I swear to God, there must have been 8 of them on a shelf. Like, yeah, we just got a bunch of Ural engines. I'm like, who has like 6 or 8 650 Ural engines sitting on a shelf?
It's just an insurance policy.
Just in case.
Just in case.
Zombie apocalypse comes, you don't want to get caught.
It's sometimes cheaper to switch an engine than it is to actually fix the one that's broken.
That is true. Oh, man.
So, Eric, let me ask you a little bit about some of your films that you've done, because I know you're in process on Sit, Stay, Ride 2.
Yep, it's almost done, fortunately, and we've had a blast doing that, but, it's taken a lot longer than we expected, so thanks for asking.
Yeah, no,
he's also really close.
Well, I get the... I signed up on the crowdfunding campaign on that, so I get the emails when you send them out.
Oh, my God. Then you've seen the drama, man. This has been a 180 from the first Sit, Stay, Ride. I feel bad because we are, way behind schedule on that. It's cost us about twice what we raised on Kickstarter. But, man, there's some pissed off people. I don't know if people's manners have gone out the window in the last couple of years or what, but we've had about 20 really super angry people out of 200. And, I guess they don't have anything better to do than sit around wondering where that movie is and why it ain't done and in their mailbox. But I don't know that we'll be doing version 3.
Well, I won't be able to bask in the glory with you when it's finished.
Well, there you go. We've refunded a few bucks on that. But, the film's turning out great, and we're excited to be doing it. We love the subject matter. There's nothing happier than a dog in a sidecar. But, I think once people commit to a crowdfunding campaign, I do think there's a certain segment of the population who feels like they are due their credit as a producer and a whip cracker, and I don't do that well with whip cracking. So except unless it's my wife.
Well, you got to follow the hierarchy. That's how that works.
There you go.
So just kind of out of curiosity, I want to talk a little bit about The Last Motorcycle on Earth, of course, because that's what you're working on now. When you come up with a project like that, and you've got it planned for 3 roughly hour-long episodes, correct?
That's right, at this point.
So when you started shooting the first one, did you have the whole story thought out and written down, or you kind of, I got 1 hour, let's film 1 hour, and then see where it goes?
So on one hand, absolutely not. On the other hand, we kind of had a sense that we could do 10 episodes probably. I mean, there's so much story there. There's so much fodder for great drama when you create this world that's all my friends' worst nightmare. And then you put some interesting characters into it that actually could be able to, in Mort's case, in Rick's case, Rick Barkhold's one of the other stars, is what they would do. These guys don't have to pretend as to what they would do and how they would feel.
This is easy to imagine.
Yeah, so we create this world and we let these characters all run around in it. It's so much fun to write in this long form element versus a feature where you have to, in a very tidy, short period of time, figure it all out, character arcs, all that's done in 90 minutes or 2 hours. I love the idea of a longer form piece, and 3 hours is what we think we can do on our own. If the Indiegogo campaign, doesn't do it for us, or we don't quite make that or whatever, we can still do it. We would love to do more. It will just depend on whether people embrace this and get in touch and want to help out or want to spread the word about it. I mean, if this is something that is too disturbing for a lot of people to look at, which from the Facebook comments seems like maybe it is. I mean, people are kind of flipping out that we're even proposing this as a as a fictional possibility, we could, I think, do several seasons of this, because when we distributed Best Bar in America, a guy got a hold of me from Singapore, and he said, "You got to come out here and do a documentary if we could convince these guys to let you do it, because in Singapore it's illegal to customize your motorcycle. You can go to jail if you have a customized bike in any way whatsoever. You change it from factory, you're going to jail." And these guys wrote me saying there are custom bike shops that are underground. They are like risking their lives in a way. They're risking their freedom to customize their motorcycles and put them in a trailer in the middle of the night and go ride them around the only tiny rural corner of that island.
That's
and to me, that's
insane.
That's 100% true. And I tried for like a year to get these guys to let me come over and shoot, and they just said, "No, we can't do it. You know, even if you blur our faces, what if you don't? We're totally screwed. We have families." So, you know, humans are funny creatures in that, you know, there's a control element there. And, you know, perhaps none of this will come to pass in the U.S., but it's interesting to bring up these topics by thinking about it in a way that's actually logical and rational. How could this happen? What would the Supreme Court have to do to you know, allow for a ban on petroleum, allow for a ban on ownership of petroleum-powered vehicles? You know, if you want an old vehicle in Germany, I mean, you can only drive it there's restricted hours. You can't drive it as a daily driver. You have to pay a bunch of money every year to have an old timer. And so this stuff goes on in different flavors around the world. And, you know, what if we concentrated it to where we are now, you know, in a near future kind of way? And we think about what's the worst case scenario and what would people do about it? You know, would people march in the streets, or would the orthodontist with his, you know, with his Softail give it up and let the government buy it back from him and go buy a boat? You know, there's all kinds of different ways people would react to this. And I wanted to know, on a dramatic level, what a person would do, like Mort's character Conrad Mendel, if they had put their whole life into this. I mean, they've been riding since they were a kid. We got a great collection of bikes. These bikes are all for a reason. He wanted these particular motorcycles for a reason. He's got a parts company. He's got an old-time kind of radio show called Swap Talk, you know, that's like an on-air Craigslist of old motorcycle parts. That's all part of the film. So this guy is as committed and deeply into that life as anybody could be, in my imagination. And then he's told that they're gonna ban motorcycles. What does he do?
He's got to speak up. You know, that guy's got to speak up. You know, one of the things that I noticed from the difference between the Best Bar in America and the Last Motorcycle on Earth is, I'm gonna give you a little bit of credit, I guess. It really shows the growth that you've made as a filmmaker between then and now, because Best Bar in America has a very specific feel to it, but it for me anyways, and I'm not a film critic, you know, my favorite movie is Star Wars, so that's where I'm coming from. It feels a little less. Let me hold on a second.
Sure.
So when in the very first
slippery slope, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm not trying to offer a critique, which is not my intention. But let me say this then. In the very first 60 seconds of the trailer, just the trailer for Last Motorcycle on Earth, it is so clear that you have built this complete contextual world that is conceptualized around this kind of unimaginable illegality of petroleum products and gasoline powered vehicles, and that concept. It's like dropping the viewer into the middle of this world that doesn't make any sense. Whereas, you know, in the Best Bar in America, I know that guy. I know those guys. You know, it feels very comfortable. Best Bar feels very comfortable, and Last Motorcycle on Earth feels very uncomfortable because of this world that you've created from the very first 60 seconds of the trailer.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, it has been great to have the time, and we have taken this really slowly. We've taken the approach, you know, just like anything we tell our clients in video production, you want it good, fast, or cheap. Choose two. Yeah. And we're going really, really slow on this. And Mort and I have spent endless hours talking about this. And I came to him with basically a script I'd been working on for a long time. And, first episode and an outline for the other episodes. And I ran every detail by him and a few other folks, but primarily Mort. And he called me out on so much stuff. And we tried to create a world that was logical, even if it's way far from our present reality. We wanted it to be possible, not be BS when it comes to how things would have happened. And
no magic dust.
Right. This
could happen.
We don't want people to watch it and see something that's so out there and implausible or illogical that they stop believing it and they stop being able to be in that world. And so, I appreciate the remarks on Best Bar. We had so much fun making Best Bar, and we didn't know what we were doing really. We had some money from doing a commercial, my brother and me, and we had a couple actors, and we had a bike that Jim Beyer loaned us, this sidecar bike /2, and we basically had my SUV in that trailer and a generator and a camera, and we cruised around for close to 90 days making that movie here and there, and spending $25,000 on booze and $10,000 on gas, and that's like really seriously, and some food in there somewhere. But we didn't really know what we were doing, and a lot of it wasn't really that thought out. We did have a script, but it was getting changed all the way along. And by having the time to think it through and to try to make I heard a famous filmmaker said the most important thing, more than anything in a movie, is that the tone be consistent, that the tone be thought out in advance. How do you want it to feel? How do you want the audience to feel when they watch it? And we just wanted an authentic tone. We wanted one that was believable, kind of a quiet environment. The trailer's pretty bombastic and loud and quick and insane. The movie is, the show is not at all like that. The show is actually pretty quiet, and it's pretty low key.
A little more desperate.
Yeah, and it's, I hate trying to cram an idea into 2 minutes, but you just have to. But we just spent a ton of time thinking this through, and there are certainly people can say BS to any of it, but we don't think there's many holes in the logic as to how this would happen. We've talked to some constitutional scholars and said, hey guys, theoretically, how would this be able to occur? And they've given us some details on that, which we don't dwell on. We just want to get the world established to the best of our ability, and then let real humans
as well.
Yeah, let real humans kind of kick around in it.
And I think that's one of the strengths of the story, is that you're not engaging in a full, drawn-out, long explanation of how we got from, 2017, 2018 to, 2022 or 25, when the movie is set in the near future. You just kind of establish it as, this is the world, this is what's going on. Now we're kind of watching how it plays out.
And suspension of disbelief is what they call that in the movie world. It's just, you establish yourself as credible as a storyteller, and you tell them what's going on, and they can either go along for the ride or not. And if it's well done, I think people will go along for the ride. That's the whole thing with movies. It's like we get to, pretend like dinosaurs are still around and chasing people in Jeeps. That's great.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Nobody's going, that's not real. They're just like, right?
That's fake news.
Yeah. Well, that's it. So anyway, it's just been a blast, and we're climbing into some pretty interesting issues now, and we're having to. We have made this first episode for almost nothing, and in fact, there's been no crew. My wife Geneva has been helping with the writing and some of the editing and that kind of thing, and certainly acting as a producer on the home front here. Mort's been a producer, co-writer, and but there's been no crew. Literally half of the days I'm with the camera, he's on the bike. We might have a guy driving a vehicle to help, when we're cruising down the highway, but I shoot so many commercials and documentaries where I have no crew or maybe one person, that to me is part of this challenge as well, is that this has been made for, the visual effects shot we paid for recently cost us twice as much as we have into the film. Wow. And that's not that much. And by being able to go out and record the sound, do the lighting, do the camera work, all of that without any assistance, nobody can tell us what we can do.
We've had just a landslide of volunteers, people that want to be involved and want to bring music, want to bring whatever they can. They're more than willing.
Yeah, people have been great. When you're doing something that's on the cheap but well intentioned and professional, people are happy to help, which is just awesome.
Well, and I think that actually kind of plays into a little bit of our crowdfunding culture. When there's a cool idea out there, sometimes you can feel like a part of it, like you're part of the reason that it got made, or you helped it get made. And maybe that's you contribute $50 or $100 or whatever, and maybe it's you go out on a cold windy day and give the guys coming out of the street hot coffee so that they can get out and make the next shot.
Yeah, it is about that. It is a real community kind of deal. And, I was ragging on the crowdfunding for Sit Stay Ride too, only because there have been a few rude people. But honestly, crowdfunding has revolutionized artwork in so many ways. I mean, whether you're a filmmaker or whatever, there's so many people doing interesting things because of crowdfunding. And it really has been great. I mean, mostly we get so much positive feedback, and people like to feel involved, and people are willing to kick down a little bit of money. And in this case, there have been a couple of really generous donations with our current crowdfunding, and we're going for a big chunk of money compared to what we've done in the past, primarily because feature films, when it comes to sound mixing and music and visual, there are some visual effects in this. I mean, we're not talking Star Wars, but we're talking about some stuff that is rocket science to me. And these guys who can do this, they get paid a lot of money even when they're giving you a break.
Yeah.
And they should, because they're talented people. So we're trying to get this thing done, and we'll see what comes of it. But it's so far it's been a blast, and I think that the people that I know that ride, that are really committed riders, are going to really enjoy this.
I absolutely agree. I'm already completely fascinated, just from the short trailer and reading up a little bit about it, because I had a little moment yesterday morning. As a matter of fact, the above the fold headline on my local newspaper was about the rise, almost a 50% rise in motorcycle related deaths on the roads in Virginia from 2016 to 2017, and. Wow. The overwhelming sentiment in the article was, please, for the love of all that's holy, people, put your damn cell phones down and you'll save lives. But I can see a future where cell phones and that kind of incessant connectivity become more important than operating the vehicle. And we live in a world full of robot cars.
Yeah. I think that there are a lot of people that want to see that. Yeah,
it's pretty scary.
The unintended collateral damage of any technology, and no one thought when cell phones kind of arrived that any of this would happen. Personal computers, for everything you fix, you break 100 things. It's the big trade-off, and if you follow it, it just gets worse. We're going to explore some really tough ideas on this without putting on foil hats if possible, but we are definitely going to be introducing some ideas about what this technology could bring with it, and trying not to parallel it with anything else currently on some other liberties that are being questioned, as we don't want to be those guys. That's not what this film is about. I don't.
Right. I agree 100%.
This is about a liberty, but this one strikes to everyone.
Well, we know a few really in the loop tech people down in Silicon Valley, and there are a couple things going on that are pretty interesting that helped us, accelerate this idea. And one of them is that engineering-wise, the movement and size and the sort of LiDAR signature of motorcycles are really tough right now for self-driving cars. They're really having a tough time. The lane splitting down there really freaks those cars out. And they are, as we saw in that unfortunate thing recently down in Arizona, that lady was pushing a bike across the street, and that car did not even slow down from 45 miles an hour. And there are already on the road cars with e-braking, the sensing of vehicles ahead, on the side, etc. That's in cars all over the place on the road right now. And some friends of mine were in a bike race in Texas, and the group of bicycles came up behind. This is a bike race on public streets. And they came up behind a car, moved around it, and the car, and when they passed in front of the vehicle, the car e-braked, automatically braked, and piled pile up a bunch of cyclists behind who hadn't passed yet. And there was no way they could figure out how to turn this off. They kept having that problem throughout the day. And you read about the engineering problems with self-driving cars, and small vehicles that move quickly are an issue. They also say that really, if we want to have a safe transportation system with autonomous vehicles, they need to all be autonomous. Far, far safer to have them all be talking to each other than a mix of human-driven and autonomous. So, we'll see what happens, but I think that there are reasons to be concerned that there are decisions being made right now that are going to really define our transportation system for the next couple of generations. And unless, motorcycling has a seat at that table, I think that could be a real problem, and particularly in metropolitan areas, where the density and the traffic really is an issue. I think those are the first areas we'll see that. So lots to explore and lots of issues that I think are.
Yeah, stay tuned. We'll have some things I know you haven't thought of. I'm fairly certain you haven't thought of that you're going to go, oh my, I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. Well, I honestly just can't imagine a world without motorcycles in it. That just escapes my imagination. But there are other countries that, and even in the United States, that we've banned things from time to time, generally considered harmful. Like DDT. The government decided that was the dangers of it outweighed the usefulness of it, and so they banned it, which doesn't mean that you can't get it 100%. It's just tougher, and just the idea that motorcycles could be banned is really kind of a mind-boggling thing. So I think it makes for a really fantastic idea for I want to keep saying a film, but for a visual dramatic display. Yeah.
Well, it is interesting to think about, the future. And, as we've kicked it around, there are a lot of dimensions to it. And, the other side of it is, the future of petroleum.
None of them actually go anywhere good. None of the paths lead anywhere that is likable. None of them. And that's too bad. But, maybe it's just, kids of our generation, are distrustful and don't believe that the people that say they want to help us really do, and then the expectation that we're going to be helped is kind of distressing. This generation of people that want to be somehow taken care of, and that is even more frightening in some ways because they don't have any malice in them. So there's tons to think about here.
We've had a number of folks get in touch from the UK and from Northern Europe, because those, Norway and the UK have announced, France as well, that petroleum's banned 2040. 2040, not happening anymore. And, what happens to folks that want to ride their old bikes? What happens to folks that, make their living as a mechanic? Whatever it is.
Outright ban on diesel vehicles in German cities coming. Yep. The Supreme Court in Germany cleared that. Yep. They can ban diesel vehicles, and they will be banning diesel vehicles in the city limits of some cities, and it's coming. That's these types of things are, and a city problem, an urban problem, is one of our fears, I guess, is that if it's good for the city, it must be good for everyone. And so they just think in those terms. And, well, this might have some legitimate use in a tight urban area. It probably doesn't play real well in your neck of the woods. And I'm pretty sure we'd get, we'd just barricade ourselves in Montana. Okay, nobody in, nobody out.
Well, and, I like to think that when the thought crosses my mind that they can have my motorcycles when they pry them from my cold dead fingers. Right. But in reality, I kind of wonder if that kind of thing is something that enough people would stand up for. And if it came down to it.
I don't know. The minute you even bring it up, this discussion is so touchy that you instantly paint yourself or can paint yourself as being extreme, and because of other issues that are in the media right now. So it's a tough thing to even have the conversation in any kind of rational way. And our world has just become so polarized from one end to the other, and everything is just ultimately evil from both directions. There just isn't anything middle anymore, and that's something that I guess we're going to do our level best to try to explore. But if you read in the paper we've been attacked, don't be surprised.
Right. Well, it's
if either of you should have a slip and fall, I'll definitely be calling in some reinforcements.
Appreciate that.
Well, listen, where can people go to find out a little bit more, Eric, about your films, and especially about Last Motorcycle on Earth? Where on the web can they go?
Well, we have a Facebook page that's pretty interesting. If people want to go right to the Indiegogo campaign, we've done created an address that's pretty simple, which is lastmotorcycle.com, and that'll actually ping you right over to the Indiegogo page. And we have some pretty cool stuff.
There's a YouTube link as well, I think.
Yeah, there's YouTube and Vimeo if they want to see the trailer, and usually there's links everywhere there. But Facebook is great, and lastmotorcycle.com will get you right to where you can contribute if you feel like doing so.
And your other stuff, Best Bar and Sit Stay Ride, do they have dedicated websites, or can people get them on Amazon or whatever?
Yeah, that's pretty much where it is now. You can get both of those films on Amazon. Chopper Town handles Best Bar in America as well. There's streaming DVD options on that. And in fact, Best Bar is on Amazon Prime for free. If you're a member of Prime, you can watch it with no fee.
Well, that's good to know. And I always I have a blog post page for every episode, and I'll make sure that I put the links in those and in the show notes for the email as well, so that they're easy for people to get to.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Thanks so much.
So one kind of forward-looking question there before we wrap up. I know you're probably really consumed with Last Motorcycle right now, but what are your thoughts about the future? What's your next project that you're even twinkling on?
Man, that's a hard one. Normally, we have a couple stacked up, but between Sit Stay Ride 2, which is going to be out this summer, and we hope more than 3 episodes of The Last Motorcycle on Earth. We're kind of putting some gaps in the calendar there, because really, I think there's plenty of story. I mean, even if it is this in our plot, there's a year until motorcycles are supposedly banned. So we have a year in which we're operating. But I think, just as a dramatist and a filmmaker, the idea of being a motorcyclist when motorcycles are illegal, that's an entire season right there, a la Singapore kind of thing. And we're talking about how maybe they're going to mitigate this ban and change it into something a little different, and if there's enough public outcry, governments tend to react. So we'll see what happens. But right now we have high hopes about this program because we're just having so much fun doing it. I mean, at the end of the day, we're having a blast, and so far the reactions have been really positive, and more than anything, it's just fun to be out doing stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, Eric and Neil, I really want to tell you how much I appreciate you guys making time to come on the show, and we'll keep up with you, and maybe we can get an update from you in our next season next year about this time.
I sure appreciate it, Wes. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Because this podcast is produced by the BMW Motorcycle Owners of America, in every episode I highlight one benefit of being a member. I admit it's an enticement to get you over to our website and to get you to join for at least 1 year. I've been a member since 1999 and have used the member benefits to my advantage countless times since then, especially the Roadside Assistance Program. But that's not what I'm going to tell you about today. Today, it's all about the discount you can get at Americade, the largest organized motorcycle rally east of the Rocky Mountains, I think. That's me saying it, not them. Anyway, the folks at Americade have extended discounts to all MOA members who would like to attend. You can get a $99 premium package that includes week-long passes for Americade HQ and the Americade Expo. HQ is where the factory demos and all the other events are, while the Expo is over 200,000 square feet of vendors. Your premium package pass also gets you into the Friday night celebration, a t-shirt, and a choice of one of their dinner packages too. There are other options available for MOA members, so head over to bmwmoa.org, log in, and do a search for Americade. I'll put direct links for both the Americade discount and Americade itself in the show notes. Before I sign off, I want to remind you to check out our website at horizon.bmwmoa.org. You can get all the links for this and every other episode going back to the first one there. You can also sign up for our email newsletter at tinyletter.com/chasingthehorizon. The podcast has pages on Facebook and Twitter, and I'll be introducing an Instagram page in Season 2. Drop me an email at podcast@bmwmoa.org if you have suggestions for future guests or news you'd like to see covered. Thank you for coming back for the 20th episode of Chasing the Horizon, which featured a discussion with filmmaker Eric Ristau and his collaborator, Neil Olson. Our next episode will feature a discussion with Paul Beasley, an engineer with Castrol. That episode will be out on May 7th. Andrew Finberg composed and recorded our theme music. Karen Halker designed our logo. Thanks again to all our guests and listeners for giving us their time. We'll see you out there somewhere on the road. Or off it. Ride safe.